Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today for the premiere episode of Creating in Color. My name is Nicole M. Young, and I am coming to you from my home office in Northern Connecticut. Shout out to everyone joining us today from both Facebook and YouTube, and especially everybody who is joining us at what was once 3 p.m. Eastern time yesterday. It's now 4 o'clock, so I hope that you were able to catch up on that lost hour and what activity would have come to that. So, creating in color. For many of you that know me and follow my work, I have a lot of independent projects in my coffer, including Black Writers Read with Valley Society. I also recently published a chapbook anthology through Attack Bear Press, and I perform throughout Western Massachusetts. I'm also a playwright, and I do a lot of other things. The reason for Creating in Color, which is a concept I came up with a couple of years ago, is I wanted an opportunity to invite others to intimate conversations with my friends, as so much wisdom, brilliance, and revolution is shared during these conversations. So this is where we are. I was trying to think of the best moment and opportunity to introduce the show, and I thought, why not the spring forward daylight savings time day? Also, why not the birthday weekend of a really dear friend who is today's guest? So the concept behind Creating in Color, I wanted to give everyone an inside look into the creative process of Black, Indigenous, people of color writers, musicians, visual artists, and content creators whose work challenges genre conventions, redefines culture, and promotes social transformation. So essentially an opportunity for me to sit down and talk with not only collaborators of mine and great friends, but also people I admire. I will be doing the show based on when people that I know have exhibits opening, in this case, an album release coming up, something to help uplift and promote their work. So today I would like to the first guest that I have, and it's such a privilege that they've agreed to serve as the premier guest for the series. Singer, songwriter, poet, composer, filmmaker, educator, scholar, friend, sister, collaborator, and I see her as my mentor, Doctora Xingona Diana Alvarez. She is an extremely accomplished and beautiful human being, so much so that I am going to take this opportunity to read a good chunk of her biography for those who may not be familiar with her work before bringing her on. Dr. Diana Alvarez's work centers transcendence, kinship, and the co-liberation and nourishment of BIPOC women, non-binary, trans, and genderqueer artists. The songs on her debut album, Ser Artista, are songs from her award-winning show, I want to say that again, award-winning show, Quiero Volver a Chicanx Ritual Opera. Quiero Volver is a multimedia performance altar for women, non-binary, trans, and genderqueer artists of color to convene and manifest futures. Quiero Volver features original music, sonic text scores, a poem script for ensemble performance, and documentary portraits from the Bridge Song series, a virtual convening for artists of color to build coalitions for planetary healing. In 2018, Quiero Volver was produced at Smith College by grassroots organizers and raised over $10,000 to support immigrant justice initiatives. In 2020, Quiero Volver was awarded a grant from the New England Foundation for the Arts and will premiere as a video project in 2021. Performances from Quiero Volver benefit the Bridge Song Fund, a nourishing grant program for BIPOC women, non-binary, and trans and genderqueer musicians in Western Massachusetts. Dr. Alvarez founded the Bridge Song Fund in 2020 in collaboration with the Institute for the Musical Arts based in Goshen, Massachusetts. First generation college grad, Dr. Alvarez earned her PhD in Electronic Arts from Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute in Troy, New York, where she was mentored by groundbreaking composer Pauline Oliveris. In 2008, Dr. Alvarez completed her MFA in poetry at Sarah Lawrence College. Dr. Alvarez is an invited performer, guest lecturer, workshop facilitator, and keynote speaker at venues and schools across the US and worldwide. So I would like to bring on to the virtual stage my Llama Mama sister, Dr. Xingona Diana Ray Alvarez.
Yay!
Yay! Yay! Hi!
Hi! There's something about when you read my bio, when you in particular, Nicole M. Young, Coco, Pen Explorer, when you read my bio, that I believe it in a whole different way. And I think it's the sisterhood that we have, hearing it from your voice, and your body. It's just like, oh, I did those things. And I think it's also because you've accompanied me on the journey, so much of it. And I am very inspired and nourished by your work as well. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Like, I wanted to read the entire bio off your website, but I was like, that's going to take up the whole episode. So I was like, I'm going to just shoot to, us getting in conversation. But before we do that, I have a very special guest that wants to join me on screen because something very special happened this week. Somebody had a birthday and somebody wants to say hi.
Oh, Lily the llama.
It's Lily the llama. So this is, for everyone watching, this is a cute little inside thing. I can't even remember how it came up, but years ago, Diana and I, we both love llamas. We think they are adorable. And so we've adopted the moniker Mama Llama Sisters. And so I have one and Diana has one somewhere due
that
to
my cat destroyed.
That her cat destroyed. So rest in peace.
Oh, she's very much still alive. It's just that Zito has a lot of fun with his llama.
Oh,
and attacks
my.
it often.
Yes, which I hope Zito makes an appearance today. So, in honor of your birthday, I hope that it's okay that we sing a quick little song that I hope doesn't get me in trouble with the FCC because of copyright. So, I have to bring that up. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Doctora Xingona Diana Ray Alvarez. I am so blessed to have you in my life. Thank you so much, Irene. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you so much, friend. I love you. Oh my
I
goodness.
love you so much. Lily's now going to say bye.
Bye,
and
Lily.
She's going to turn it over to us to start our lovely conversation.
Yes.
But she's going to be here in the wings waiting to say hi again.
And that was so beautiful, friend. Thank you for saying happy birthday.
Thank you. And thanks to everybody for being here today to share that moment. So let's go ahead and dig into the questions. So the purpose of today is to not only talk about your career and getting to where you are now, but also talking about your upcoming album release, which I am extremely excited about.
Yeah, me too.
So let's start with the first question. Offer us a brief snapshot into the journey to now. How did you become Doctora Xingona, and when did you first match the talent to the dream of becoming an artist?
I love your questions, first of all. Well, I think that there's this pinnacle moment that happened in my life when I lost a lot of family in 2015, and there was a turn. But even before that, my grandfather, who had raised me and who I considered, well, I think maybe when he died, I realized he was my best friend and my biggest advocate. He died in my arms in 2013. And it was a very sudden and painful death where he, it was caused by his being exploited for most of his life in labor. And after that experience, I went back to the world that I was living in, and everything just started melting away. And it was like, okay, you can't keep doing things that are just getting you by. You have to do the thing that you were put on this planet to do. And I had known since I was very young that I mean, I've been singing most of my life and performing most of my life, but I when I went to college, I was circumnavigating my desire to be a songwriter for a long time. I would still bring it into my world. I do like final projects that were songs or poems, but I wasn't allowing myself to just give in to being an artist and centering art in my world. So when my grandfather died, it changed everything. Death is fertile ground for so much transformation to occur. And so that began the journey to start thinking about a way to get where I wanted to get, and that was just to play music and to write and play my own songs. And I started looking up graduate programs, and I've always relied, or I did for many years until I reached the pinnacle of education with a PhD. I relied on education as an escape from oppression growing up in Texas, and then it was also I just have always thrived with a lot of structure. When I have too much, I need like flexible structure. And when I have a lot of freedom, it's a good thing. I've learned how to structure myself now as an adult, but when I was younger, I needed mentors and a pathway, and school always helped me do that. And conversely, I've always admired people who just knew that the thing that they wanted to do was the thing and then went for it. But I always felt like I needed like handrails to move forward. And so yeah, that's that. I would say that that moment shifted everything. And Doctora Chingona, I mean, there are many Doctora Chingonas in the world, but there's a part of me that feels that there needs to be somebody who uses that name publicly, like that it just needs to be commonplace, you know? And it's a celebration of the pursuit of knowledge, not necessarily through formal or elitist educational structures, but the pursuit of knowledge and the badassery that we have internally. And often that title for me is calling into being my centeredness and calling into being me calling myself to step into my power. And that is a continual learning journey.
Yeah, and we'll talk about this later, but this is one of the reasons why I think your opera is so brilliant. It's so
Mm.
brilliant in that you twist and intersect so many different genres to present that one combination of art. Like it
Mm-hmm.
I think your art form is brilliant. So the next question, which I think you started alluding to a little bit in your response to the first question, if you could identify one formative moment that defined your creative practice in your career, what would it be and why?
Mm. There are a few, but I thought about this question and because so several things. The I think in the next week or two, Selena is going to be honored at the Grammys, and this year, I think around March 30th is the anniversary of her death. And
Mm.
I don't know what there's something very comforting to me. I'll be on Instagram and just watching these, there are all these pages that have live footage of Selena performing. And one of the biggest things that shifted my life was being able to play and sing guitar at the same time. It's when I felt like I could soar. And that was more recent. But I would say that as a child, when Selena died, I was one of many kids
Mm.
in South Texas. I'm from Corpus Christi, where she was from, who wanted to be like her and who wanted to sing. And that really lit a fire in me. I remember locking myself in my room with her cassette tapes and recording myself. Like, I learn a lot by recording, so I would listen back to my voice and it'd be like, "Oh, you didn't do this right here. So go and sing it again and record it again." And I
Yes.
mean, you kind of also have to be obsessive to be a musician. So I think that that was a really big formative experience. Is just getting acquainted with Selena's entire catalog and singing it and just admiring this person who worked so hard to be where she was, and she died at 23, I think, and it's wild
Wow.
because I look at images of her and I always thought she was, of course I was a child, so I thought she was so much older, but um I think about myself at 23 and like what people accomplished by 23, and
Right.
she had won a Grammy. Was,
Right.
she's just a brilliant artist, and I think that we in our communities of color, we know that brilliance, but I don't know that it translates to. It has translated a little bit to the mainstream, but it's she's a fascinating artist and very influential to me.
Yeah, and thank you so much for also mentioning the portion of the self-taught, which I didn't realize that you spent some time with Selena's tapes, but I could see a cute little thing in it with her little like
Wait, I
cassette
am by
tape.
a window. I literally could be like, late at night when all.
Yes!
Okay, I'll stop. I'm just being
That was
silly now.
so
I don't
cute.
have the reverb on my voice.
You can stage your own music video right now.
I
You have the
could.
great backdrop. Ta ta
I have a
ta.
whole lighting kit in the corner of my studio thanks to you.
I'm like, just do it right now. Do the music video right now. And speaking of, because you are a
I
singer
was
songwriter.
hmm I was like,
I
don't test me. You know I will.
know you
was,
will. I
I
know you
literally had a
will.
moment of looking around and being like, okay, where do I start?
Yes. But you also need like you need like a long, especially since she was big in the 90s, you need like a place you could take like a long, slow walk
I
where
know
we
that
have the
I
image of
don't
your
have.
back.
I'd be walking in circles in my apartment. Uh,
You be what? Oh my god, that would be hilarious. I'm like, I would love to see that video of you just walking in circles in your apartment.
You might. I
I
did say
might.
Me Quiero Volver was going to be a video this year, and we got to work with what we got.
Exactly. Thank you, quarantine. and,
Exactly.
and speaking of working with what you got, which you have a lot, you situate yourself as a singer songwriter, similar to Selena, poet,
Mhm.
composer, filmmaker, educator, and scholar. How did you find the intersections that exist within these disciplines, and how does your work speak to multidisciplinarity?
Mm. Well, I wanted to be a singer-songwriter. I think voice and my pen writing, those are my primary instruments and they go hand in hand. So writing poems or lyrics or essays or whatever or plays and then vocalizing, all of those two things go are like me at the core. And then and I'm very musical, and I needed to find a way to express that. So I went through intensive study of guitar for a few years with Pamela Means locally because I wanted to merge all the things I could, like the songs in me, with
Mhm.
putting them into a form. So, but before all of that, I considered myself a writer first, and I was using poetry as a way to to be a better songwriter. So when I went to do my MFA in poetry at Sarah Lawrence, I was just trying to stay. I was trying to keep myself growing, and I didn't. I was afraid of. I was escaping oppression still. I was like, I have to figure out what to do next after college. So I'm gonna go to this school and get in a lot of debt. I had no guidance with regard to that, and
Mhm.
I I studied poetry because there was no songwriting writing program that I knew of. So I did that, and then but when I was in college, I wrote in every genre. I just loved writing. I took nonfiction classes, playwriting classes, fiction, poetry, everything, essay writing, nonfiction. It was just, I just loved writing. And so the opera is kind of the octopus umbrella that holds all the different forms, all the different parts of me. the videography is the newest form, and that came about because I was in my PhD program and I thought, oh, I want to research artists, but I need to document them. So I started learning how to use a camera at RPI, and I love videography and I love video art. And the teaching part of me, I think, just comes from having lived a lot of life in, I mean, now it feels like, okay, well, you're really an adult now, but I mean, it has always felt like I was an old soul, and I
Mm-hmm.
had a lot of many stories in me. And I think that translates over to the classroom very well. In that, I think I pride myself on being a professor or teacher or facilitator that others can see themselves in. Um, and and that's not, I mean, we may not always share the same exact experiences, but the experiences of having to transform and having to grow through a lot of um, different obstacles. Um, so I think I'm answering your question.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. And thank you also for mentioning just the importance of representation and education. And I think this is why you and I
Yeah.
are queer familia, in that we are very strategic in where we show up and show out,
Mm-hmm.
because we know how important it is for others to see themselves represented. And
Mm-hmm.
I think this is why I love not only collaborating with you, but also collaborating with others based in Western Mass, Northern Connecticut, this area, because there are so few of us here
Mm-hmm.
that we we tend to make sure that our work speaks to our experiences, our identities, because we want to use that as a way to show people that you exist, you are important.
Yes, absolutely. I can't tell you the number of times that, I worked in admission for Hampshire and Mount Holyoke before I went to do my PhD, and I would go onto DNA reservations in Arizona, or to schools in Houston or Dallas, where I was finding students who I felt like I was looking at me
Mm-hmm.
in in a younger version of myself, and it was a wild experience because they were having the same kind of, I mean, we were obviously different people, but I could see aspects of them and their nervousness to leave home, or their fear of um, leaving their culture, or the challenges of their own oppression at home, and I think I try to be the person I wish I had when I
Mm.
was younger.
Wow. And I think that, because I was going to ask one question, but it's going to take into another. And I think that's why you ended up pursuing as high of a career and as high of an education as you could. So I'm going
Mm.
to ask this question and then intersect into the next one. Um, what is at the center of your work and why? And what is the mission of your work and your words?
Mm. Well, that uh, for me is something that in the first year of my PhD program, I just knew when I entered the PhD program, I was like, I need to center art in my life. And so I'm going to go be an artist in this really cool cutting edge program where you can do all kinds of technology things with art. And I didn't really know what, I think I had an idea that I wanted to make. Back then, I was calling it a Mexican folk opera, but I didn't really, I was just learning. I was in my first year taking classes, taking like a ridiculous amount of classes that were required, like psychoacoustics and deep listening, and movement courses. And then my grandmother died, and
Mm-hmm.
my mentor died. And it was around then that I had this, I had to propose what my research would be. And I think, again, in the middle of grief, this is where death is
Mm-hmm.
so informative in my life. I I remember thinking, okay, you are going to be doing your dissertation for 4 years,
Mm-hmm.
and you will likely, you're going to have to live with this for the rest of your life. It's going to be the
Mm.
research that you say you're going to do. And it really came down to, what is the thing that I can do forever and always feel like this is my home and this is where I want to be. And I had also simultaneously just watched the documentary of Nina Simone's life. And I remember this deep
Oh.
feeling of just sadness that this human being, who was one of the most brilliant artists we have ever
Mm-hmm.
witnessed on this planet, was not cherished.
Yeah.
And I think the big question was, what would our world look like if we cherished artists like Nina Simone? And then I was really thinking, like, okay, if I'm thinking about who is the most isolated or invisibilized in institutions of education, I thought,
Mm-hmm.
back then I was saying, I think now I say it differently. I'm always trying to find a language that is the most inclusive. But basically, what I'm trying to say is people of color who experience gender based oppression. So
Mm-hmm.
queer and trans BIPOC artists. When I realized, like, I could spend my whole life nourishing and creating with and gathering with queer and trans BIPOC artists and supporting our communities, archiving our work, and finding ways to support us, I could do that the rest of my life and be happy.
Mm.
And that's not to say that it's not utopian by any means, that our communities require so much attention and work, and there are so many complexities to this work. But that was, for me, it's about bringing attention to those of us who are the most vulnerable in our society, because I think that it's very easy to say, to look at it from a lens of, let's do what we're always doing and then just be more inclusive. But if
Mm-hmm.
we actually take the lens and focus in with attention to one community, what kind of nourishment can we bring that will impact us on a much greater scale? So that's why I decided. So for me, that's the undercurrent of all of my work, is is not just our liberation and our thriving, those things especially, and also what's really important to me is coalitional healing or coalition building. How do we,
Mm-hmm.
you know, echoing the work that was done by women of color artists and scholars, Cherie Moraga, Gloria Anzaldúa, Audre Lorde, um, Barbara Smith, in
Mm-hmm.
the late 70s, early 80s. These texts that we know of, like This Bridge Called My Back and This Bridge We Call Home, and um, that whole range of scholarship, I mean, we kind of look at it as, oh, that's great and it happened. But I see it as a
Mm-hmm.
treasure trove of knowledge that can support us in our current chaotic times.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and and often, I'm following the threads of scholars today who are mostly Black feminist scholars who are calling back to those times as well and saying, they had all the answers, so why aren't we
Mm-hmm.
listening? So that's, for me, like, the coalition building of that time is really important. I believe in having our honoring spaces for our communities individually, and I believe that that's incredibly healthy and beautiful. And I also feel very strongly that the work I want to do is I want to create a space where we can be in our differences and still be
Mm-hmm.
family. That we, yeah, I just think there's a lot of healing that we need to do within our communities.
Yeah, and actually, to kind of insert myself here, I'm a part of the opera, My Portrait, and
Yes.
it was actually because of you why I started back creating, because I took a huge hiatus. I think I took maybe like a
Mm-hmm.
7 year hiatus from doing anything. Like I still worked in the arts, I was an arts manager, but I just stopped creating
Mm-hmm.
for a myriad of reasons. But the biggest reason is because finding the support was really, really hard. And I was alienated
Yeah.
in a community, very alienated, and it was a community that looked like me. So it was very powerful when you approached me. It was like, your portrait needs to be here. And I was like, what? Like, but too, I like you really know how to take care of people, and really not only just as a human being, but speak to their work as a creative and as an educator. Because for people who don't know, also Diana was the one who nudged me to do my album, and she's on my album. There's just so many things that have been birthed out of my coiffure that came because of you. And I can definitely say your mission is definitely being lived and breathed through me and my work.
Wow. I mean, I always bring it back to you and say that's all you. But I also acknowledge that I think that one of my superpowers is the nudging and holding space for the creation, like for getting people back to their love of art or whatever it is they need to do. And I think that I've accompanied you on the journey. I think you did all the work, but I feel very honored to even be a part of it in any way. Because you are a brilliant artist, and I'm constantly in awe of the things that you create and that just keep flowing. And we often talk about whether or not, like, is it worth it? All this
Right.
work? Is it worth it? And there's this deep confidence I have in me that I just know that you're never going to stop at this point. Because you had for 7 years, and it's like, well, if for whatever reason we could lift the boulder from the cave, or whatever,
roll the stone.
If we were able to heal that and get you creating again, I mean, sky's the limit.
Yeah, because there will be times when I'm like, Diana, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. And you're like, okay. But then in the back of your head, you're like, nope, they ain't gonna last long. And then I'm like, Diana, guess what? I'm working on 9 things. And you'll be like, I knew it. See, I told you. I have the text threads here to prove. I still have them, which is why I have over 250 messages in my inbox. Just saying.
I know. I mean, you know what's wild is that through all of this, I've heard this conversation a lot I've had this conversation with other artists, and this is not, it's just a noting, there's not a judgment attached to it, but I noticed that things get very hard and discouraging for me, and even I think that it's very easy that for us to always, because it's being an independent artist is its own business, and so I'm often sharing about the wins, right? But there are a lot of losses in a lot of places where I just feel discouraged, and I never get to a place where I say, oh, I'm not doing this anymore. But I know that is something that comes up for people. And I think that, I don't know what it is, but I do know that I think I waited for it so long, and I denied myself the liberation that comes with creativity for so long that it's impossible for me to think about leaving it at this point. It's like when you feel what liberation or freedom tastes like. It's like, okay, well, I'm not going back to where I was. But I can understand that the losses are heavy, and they do bring us down.
No, they do. They do. And just the fact, another point to mention to people before I get to the next question, Diana and I met I think it was before you started your PhD program. So to have been able to follow you on that journey has been so beautiful to see.
Yeah.
It wasn't, because some people think that education transforms them and informs their work and they take it to another level. I'm not going to lie. Like, I think you doing the PhD was just to get those letters to justify the work that you are doing and to give you the invitation to other spaces that need to hear your voice. So I want to, honor and applaud that. Like the
Mm.
PhD for you was not to finesse a skill or,
Mm.
anything like that, which is the conservatory mindset, which this program is similar to a conservatory type program. But for me, I think the PhD for you was that moment to legitimize what you were doing and to
Mm.
say, I belong here. Here's the proof right here.
Mm-hmm.
This piece of paper that's in Latin that I can't read. I remember seeing it. I was like, what the hell? Uda ada bida bada what? I don't know Latin.
Huda ada
So
bida bada.
you had to
That needs to
spend
be a new song. Hold
I
on,
know
hold on.
Ida bada Buddha bada.
Huda,
That's what my degree says.
huda bada bida bada.
Yes, looking out the
What?
window. Yes, looking out the window.
I
Looking
had
out the
to.
window. And like I remember when I saw that Facebook post and you posted your degree and I was like, I can't read this shit. It's in Latin. But I understand like the things that we have to do, and it's so important. I want to mention because many of the artists that I know and love, we are also educators and we're working on getting the most terminal degree in our fields and trying to insert ourselves in academia. And there is a particular reason for that. So, this question takes us into your time at RPI. And um, you had a chance to work with a pioneer, Pauline Arvarez, who I
Mm-hmm.
am so fortunate to have had an opportunity to work with at 2 points in my life and to really get to know her work. And for those who are not familiar with her, please look her up. Please look her up. Um, I would love for you to talk about your experience being at the 4 years that you were at RPI and talk about how earning this piece of paper that's written in Latin that I can't read and probably a lot of people can't read. Um, like how did that 4 years really inform your practice? And then who along the way did you meet that you were able to collaborate with and you see as mentors?
Mm. You could have a whole afternoon talking about my PhD.
Yes,
You'd be
we're
like,
here
all
for
right,
it.
Grandma.
I got my tea ready. Go ahead.
No, it was, you know, after I finished my PhD, I did a postdoc, and I just actually saw one of my close friends who's mastering my album, Sanam Birlaj, who also mixed and recorded your album.
Yes, she did.
Um, she's one of my best friends, and went through the program with me, and we had this note that, oh yeah, right after I finished the postdoc, I couldn't drive out to Troy because I commuted for 5 years, and I had like this. My body just refused. It was like, okay, no more of that, and so I think as with every PhD program, it's an elitist. It's part of an elitist structure. It is
Mhm.
nested in white supremacy in this country, and at any institution. And we're very fortunate when we're able to find mentors who can lift us and hold us through that. But beyond all of that, because of that, because of the white supremacist tendencies of higher education,
Mhm.
the the structures for going through a PhD are very antiquated and very elitist and very strange. Like going into a room to present your work and then being told you have to leave the room so the council can
The
tell you
council.
if you've moved to the next level. And it's like, are we in I feel like we should be in an underground cave somewhere. Like
Wow.
initiations, it's a,
Yes.
very antiquated structures, and structures meant to make you feel that you have to climb, you have to earn your way, that you don't start with the power in you. And that is
Mhm.
in order to enter those institutions is to enter a colonial mindset as well, and
Mhm.
to enter into these hierarchies. So these programs require a lot of uh, chosen family and support and inner determination and strength, and privilege to
Mm-hmm.
navigate. And also, um, afterward, I know I'm not the only one that, especially people of color, need time to recover after PhD. I say all that because I just want to name all of that up front, because a PhD sounds so great. It sounds so great to be able to say doctor now, or to Doctora Xingona, like, okay, you did that, great, you can say
Mm-hmm.
that. But there's so much that goes into the earning of that. And I don't know that it's worth it. I think
Yeah.
it is worth it for some people. It was worth it for me, but I think it's a very individual decision. Um, I experienced some beautiful growth as part of the PhD program, and that was working with Pauline Oliveros. She was the chair of my dissertation committee. She really influenced the way that I create, and the way that she believed that anybody could be a composer, and she
Mm-hmm.
um or that everyone had the capacity in them to compose, and she named it for me. I remember in one of our classes where she's like, you're a composer, what like, what more is there?"
Aw.
And and so I started creating sonic text scores because of her. And also, in that whole process, I had met her before the PhD program, but Sharon Bridgeforth really became a mentor during the
Mm-hmm.
PhD program. Her work, Sharon Bridgeforth is a theatrical jazz artist, rooted
Amazing.
in the blues, improvisation, jazz, of course, and
Mm-hmm.
um, black church, just beautiful experiences. And um, Sharon was the first person who pointed me to one of her scripts and said, "Sing that." And I looked at her like,
Nice.
"Just sing, just like make something up." And she's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Okay." And then I did. And I think it was that first realization, like, "Oh, we can do this." Um,
Mm.
so Sharon was a big part of kind of blasting apart my writing. And I can't I have to just sing the praises of Magdalena Gomez too, whose
Yes.
writing I have is unparalleled in terms of craft and heart at the same time. Like, I've never read someone's work who is so beautifully constructed and also has the deepest soul in it. Because you can find work that's
Yes.
beautifully constructed, but you don't feel it. But her work is infused with her soul. And she is a mentor, but I would say also, more than that, a sister. And I feel like the way I feel with you, Nicole. Like, we're sisters, and I feel like that is its own mentorship, and that we're influenced by that chosen familyness. Um, so I would say that those people really offered me mentorship. I also There were some beautiful people in my PhD program. Kathy High, my advisor, and Rebecca
Mm-hmm.
Rouse, who just hosted me in an online forum talking about material feminisms with Georgia Tech and her university in Sweden. And there were definitely people, for all that I experienced in the PhD program, that was, you know, rife with sexism or racism or whatever it was. I There were
Mm-hmm.
some beautiful humans who really supported me, and there was a team there, and I'm very grateful for that, because it could have been a deadly experience going into that situation without family, and
Yeah.
somehow I was fortunate enough to have it.
Yeah, because I'm going through a doctorate program right now, and if it
Mm-hmm.
weren't for my fiance and you and the fact that so many of my friends have already been there and gone, I would have been like, "Yo, I can't do this. Like, I know I have to, but I just no." But I also know
Mm-hmm.
that there's an end goal there, and just how much I've grown in just the past couple of months because I started in October is amazing. And then just also what I love about academia is that there is that, like, already, like, that existing network to kind of help uplift you and then also connect you with other people. And
Yeah.
I'm so glad that Sharon and Magdalena were a part of your experience. And I'm so glad that you mentioned them here. They're amazing artists, especially want to give a shout out to both of them, which Magdalena Gomez is the current poet laureate for Springfield, Massachusetts. The two of them, what I love also about their work, and this speaks to the importance of supporting and building community, they are always uplifting and mentoring others and giving the platform to others. Like I've been on Magdalena's podcast and she wants me back on again. And then I know, which I still haven't used that gift certificate yet, for Sharon and some training from her. So I and this is the thing that we have to do because we both have experienced a lot of loss, especially family, and that we have to build our own communities because if we don't have those, we can't sustain.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a big thing that, the I forget where it came up. I think I mentioned this to someone. I was talking with somebody and it's like, well, what do you oh, it was during the material feminisms talk we had, and it was, we were talking about the way culture passes down,
Mm,
and the ways that our families show us things that you can't really find in school. And
mm-hmm,
the question I asked was, like, what do we do when the lineage lines are broken? Because especially for queer and trans BIPOC people, our um, our lineage lines are more likely to be broken early, in our lives. We're more likely to experience trauma and early family death,
yeah.
just by virtue of being a person of color. Let alone, I'm not factoring into that. I When I was doing my research, I hadn't found specific information around queer and trans folks, but I can only imagine from my lived experience that it's worse for us. And so that's why chosen family is so important. And so when the lineage lines are broken, when you don't have a parent, I've been motherless since I was 7. So when you don't have a person who can advise on certain things, and you rely on your chosen family for those things. And this is why I really, it's a life or death situation. It means our thriving for us to build family and to gather.
Yeah, so this leads me into the question of your opera. Oh my God, Kira Bovera, which is so brilliant in so many ways. And I am glad to have been blessed to have been at the first production that took place at Holyoke Community College a couple of years ago. And also, I just want to applaud you
Thank you, friend.
for producing and creating something of an idiom that takes people years. You did it in a year. Like, can I spotlight that for a second?
I work well under pressure, maybe too well. I'm trying to balance it out a little bit.
Because when you think about opera with the dangerous air quotes, it's all of these different genres that come together to tell one story. So you have music, you have live performance, you have singing, you have dance, you have costume, set, light, you have all of these things. And that's what your opera does. It takes multiple genres, put them together interdisciplinarily, and they talk to one another to tell a story. And the
Mm-hmm.
story that it tells is so beautiful. And I love that the opera is situated as an altar to honor our community. So, can you talk about,
Mm-hmm.
especially given that it informs your album, can you talk about the process of devising the opera, choosing the specific media that were included, and then why situating it as an altar?
I'm laughing because I'm like, okay,
It's a lot. It's a big question. It's a lot.
get to it. No, I love these questions. Thank you for asking them. Okay, the reason I chose, so I told you about how I decided that I wanted to center queer and trans BIPOC artists in knowledge creation, because there are not enough spaces for that to be where we're the center. I
Mm-hmm.
think there are more that are growing, and I think we just need to keep building more. Um, and I am very influenced by, in my own tradition. So this is why I say a Chicanx ritual opera, because I'm not saying this is the way that Mexicans create rituals. I'm saying this is my queer, genderqueer, extraterrestrial way, motherless way of creating rituals for myself. Some things that are passed down in my lineage because I remember them from my grandmother, and other things that I've had to make up because who was there to teach me? So I say it's a Chicanx ritual opera. It is my way of honoring family, and it's a very individual way. But for me, I have this desire to create something that's very Chicanx and very Mexican, but something that's coalitional in at the root, in the way that this bridge called my back was. So it's like it can be very rooted in my own understanding of the world, but it can also reach out and say, I want to build family with you. Um, the form that I'm used to seeing is, this is my culture and this is a celebration of all the things that I am, and that's a beautiful way of being. For me, it's like I want that celebration, the centeredness of my culture, but I want there to exist something on the planet that says this is something that is queer and Mexican and otherworldly, and it is also opening the opportunity, opening up the doors and having a meal together. Basically, like, it's saying I can be rooted in my ancestry and my culture and lineage, and that doesn't mean that I have to exclude others, or it doesn't mean that it has to be all about me, or let me look at the ways that we're interconnected, and let's celebrate that as well. Um, and how can we build bridges with the tensions that we have? Um, and so the altar is a Chicana feminist art practice. It's also our spiritual practice to have family altars, but to use the altar as a space of interrogation as well. So political, to ask questions about the way the world, to ask questions about power in the world through the altar. And it is about building a space of attention and honoring. And so on the altar in my opera are queer and trans BIPOC artists, specifically to say that the ways in which we create are innovative, they're transformative, they change the world, and we don't need a space at anyone's table. In fact, y'all need us in order to heal this planet.
Yes, say it again. I am available. I am available to teach you about your whiteness. I charge a equitable fee, but
yes, exactly. So yeah, that's where the altar part comes in. And I think and that's a big, I feel like every one of my songs feels like another family member to me, and the songs on my album, which are the songs for the opera, are that collection is its own altar dedicated to the people I've lost and the people that I want to preserve.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that you say that your opera is a Chicanx opera, because honestly, girl, I don't know if you want to account for the entire Mexican diaspora, because y'all, if it was that, your opera would be like the Ring cycle. It would be like days long. Come wear a diaper, bring a picnic basket. We would still be sitting in the auditorium of HCC, even in the pandemic, because we would have all been sitting there quarantining, watching this opera that like celebrates the experience of all Mexicans, which I would have been like, girl, please no, because we would still be sitting there. Like, I love you too. Be like, girl. So I'm glad that it's A. And also too, it's important to put your stamp on it, especially since about the curse. I love that you fuck with the opera genre so much, because for me, the opera genre is so problematic with how it centers experiences and it privileges certain voices over others and certain forms over others. And so you have no idea how much I love that you call it an opera. It's like, yep, this is what it is, because that's what it is. You take a ton of, yeah.
And I fought with people a lot about that, in
Girl.
terms of calling it that. But the way that I translate that over for people who are purists about these forms is to say, by virtue of colonization and the way that Mexican music came about, operatic forms were a part of my voice growing up singing Mexican ranchera songs, because Mexican
Mhm.
rancheras uh, were a melding, historically were a melding of European influences and indigenous influences. So if I had no choice but to have operatic forms be a part of my voice because of colonization, then I can reclaim that lineage at any point I want to.
Mm.
Because it has bled into it's bled into me, and and there's a lot of bloodshed because of it. And so I I think that it's important to access all parts of our ancestries, and whatever it is that um, for me it's about reaching back to use something to heal as well.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm like, I'm trying not to get choked up.
Oh, I love you, friend.
I love you, friend. Like we could sit here the whole episode, be like, I love you, friend. I love you, friend. I love you,
It's a
friend. And
miracle that we're able to have conversations, because I think that if we were just on we'd just be like, I love you,
I love you.
it's
Which
okay.
we have,
People need to witness that.
they do, which I have experienced. I don't know how many times we've experienced being on the phone, on FaceTime together in the before times and now. I love you, texting, I love you, I love you. We could do a whole episode of I love
We
you,
could
and
do a whole
people
opera.
yes, and people would be so intrigued, which is why I love our sisterhood so much. So this takes us to the moment that brought us here.
Oh.
Sarah Artista, can you
Mm.
talk about the album and why now? Like, why now?
Why now? Oh well. Mm. I started working on Ser Artista in 2019, and there are some amazing folks. If anyone's listening, that I know that you contributed, and if anyone else contributed to those projects, I thank you from the bottom of my heart, or not from the bottom, con todo mi corazón. And
Oh.
I set it down as a project because there was a gut intuition that was telling me this is not the right way to do this. And at the time, I felt very
Mm.
foolish. And I was also having a lot of trauma triggered, and I needed to just really work through those things in order to just get my grounding again. And so there was this period of time around last year where I just felt like, oh, I'm so foolish. Like I raised money to start the project, and then I
Mm.
set it down. And why did I do that? But it was the thing that, again, it taught me was to trust my gut. So um, during the pandemic, I started. Uh, well, actually, before the pandemic, I had already started collaborating with Seth Gleer. I'd opened for him at the Parlor Room, and we appreciated each other's music. And then during the pandemic of
Mhm.
last year, we're still in it, but last year we collaborated a couple times. And in the middle of one of those collaborations, I turned to Seth on Zoom and I said, "Can I ask you a question?" And
Yes.
we talked about him producing my album, and there's something, this gut knowledge that just felt like he's the one he can help to facilitate and hold this. And
Mm.
I was so right. It felt so. Why now it was just a matter of gut knowledge. I've been wanting to get my work recorded for some time, but it just needed to be the right. I needed somebody to hold the songs and hold my work with such respect and care. And and the songs have blossomed. I mean, they were already on their own. I hold a lot of respect for each one of these songs, but with Seth's production and care, they are ringing in a whole different way, and they're alive in a different way. And yeah, he's just a magical human, a very beautiful soul that I feel very honored to have worked with on this project. So the songs from on Ser Artista, I'm calling it Ser Artista, named after one of the songs on the album, and they will also be the songs for my opera that is going to that I'm working on producing as a video this year. And then in future years, I'd love to have it in many other iterations. And actually, friend, you don't know about this, but I will be asking you to participate again. But this time, there's an added exciting part of this, in that I'm hoping to have a reuniting, or actually a convening, of the first artists who were profiled in Quiero Volver.
Oh,
so that will be the way that we, yeah. I mean, I'm telling you this for the first time, but I'm like, you're going to be a part of it, just letting you know. And I'm really fortunate. I've just gotten funding for the Bridge Song series, which is what's going to feed into the opera. So I'm kind of going in all over the place here, but Ser Artista is the music for the album. It contains the music for the opera, and the opera also will contain some documentary material from the Bridge Song series. And then the opera as a whole, when I stage it, will raise funds for the Bridge Song Fund. So it's its whole flowing 4-part thing.
Cheers. Like I wish I had more. I'm like, cheers. Like Lily has to come back. Lily is like, I'm going to speak for Nicole right now, because she is starstruck and just in awe. So Nicole, through me, wants to say that you are amazing. Bye-bye.
Aww, thank you.
So I just have a couple more questions before we wrap up this afternoon. And thank you all to everyone out in Facebook and YouTube land for continuing to join us this afternoon. So what are next steps on the album? When is the album release date, and how can we support you on your album?
Well, currently I am scheduled to release the first single, hopefully in April. I need support right now through my debut album campaign on Indiegogo. That's the thing that I've been trying to share widely. And even I know that money is, like, cash isn't always an option, but emailing it to 5 friends, emailing the link to the campaign really makes a difference. I noticed that I get more attention to it when I send emails out to small groups of people. So if you can do that with your network, if you know anyone who wants to support QT BIPOC artists, and if you've enjoyed my opera, if you've backed up the Bridge Song Fund, or if you like my music, feel free to contribute. I have lots of ways that you can benefit. I have some both virtual and in-person concerts that I'm offering, and then some workshops that you can receive as perks. And of course, I've seen a lot of my friends just donate without asking for anything in return, which I love, and that's beautiful. And thank you, Nicole, for supporting it. You got me to my first 1K, so thank you so much.
And I'm gonna get you to your 2K and your 5K and your 8K. Hey, we go get you this money. Trust me. Turn up. We gonna get you this money.
Thank you, friend. So you asked about the dates. So my plan is to release the entire album in September of this year, but every month there will be a release of a single. So the first one will be released in April in honor of my grandfather, Charlie, who influenced all of this, and it will actually be, hopefully, if we time it out properly, it will be released on the day that he transitioned from the planet. And so that I will be releasing a song every month. So there will be songs of mine that you can listen to and hear and share out there, but the whole album won't be released until September.
Cool. And I hope you don't mind me mentioning this, but I remember a project from, I can't remember if it was before you were at RPI or during RPI, when you did you staged an altar in honor of your grandfather where there was the harmonica and his photo.
Oh
And
yeah.
I just remember how beautiful that was.
Mm. Thank you
Like,
for
oh my
reminding me.
gosh. Yeah.
That's really helpful because actually I'm gonna record the music video for the first song Charlie on a Boat this week. And I was speaking with the person who's doing videography with me, actually Julian Parker Burns, who's an, an
Nice.
amazing friend and an artist who you should hire, folks, because he's
Yes.
brilliant.
Talk about
Um,
community. Yes.
exactly. He is gonna help me with the video this week, and we were talking about it, and I was like, I feel like I need to bring my table for like to build an altar, so
Hmm.
I feel like you just influenced that. I'm gonna bring the harmonica.
Oh, which her grandfather, who I only know through Diana's words and stories, he was also a musician.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm so glad that the first song that you're releasing is in honor of your grandfather. I love it.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
it feels like a blessing. Each one of the songs that's being released month by month, it has some significance. There will be a special release for Pride Month, for example, with my queerest song. They're all queer, but Queer Love Song is the
Yes.
is one of the queerest.
Yes. It's an anthem. I love it. I'm going to be waiting
Mm.
for the anthem to come out in June.
Yay!
And then the last question that I have is because you and I, and it's so funny, like the people that are close to me, we connect through death and loss because we've lost so many people at such a young age.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Both you and I talk about the influence of our mothers and our ancestors.
Mm-hmm.
What message do you have for them today, and how would you like for them to continue carrying and supporting you in the next part of your journey?
To my ancestors?
Yes.
Mm, that's such a beautiful question. Oh, the message I have is gratitude, that I have gratitude for being held throughout all of my life, um, and guided and cared for even when they haven't existed on the earthly plane. I have felt their presence. I've always felt protected. I don't think as a human, I don't think I always acknowledge that, and I think that I can get stubborn and very human-like
Mm.
and whiny about life. But
Oh.
but I think that um, if I'm speaking from my truest self, I know that they've always been with me, and
Mm.
um, and I'm guided by them and grateful for them every day, and that I'm their child. Um, yeah, and I think that I just know that when I create work, I am working to heal our lineage lines, and I think they know that. I'm working to heal, uh, to do the things that they weren't able to do, to experience the things they weren't able to experience, the joy, the pleasure, desire, queerness, and otherworldliness, and being centered in my power. Um, all of these things are things that my ancestors maybe sometimes were able to get near, but they weren't able
Mhm.
to experience it the way that I do. So when I try to center my joy and my thriving, I'm doing it for them.
Mm.
My greatest learning up until this point is that when I honor my body and my own self, I'm honoring my ancestors. Um,
Mm.
because they're, you know, when I think about it, like this flesh is it's like my mother's flesh. I have to care
Oh.
for it. So yeah, that's thank you for that question because it's a reminder of that.
Yeah, and I still have our mama's prayer candles sitting with each other on my altar. They're keeping each other company, and thank you for allowing your mother to keep watch over me.
Oh, yay. Oh.
Yay!
Thank you so much, friend.
Thank you so much, friend. So, before we leave, I want to because I also wanted to like just put out there like the ways that people can follow you and all of that. I want to officially thank you, Diana, before I take you off the virtual stage to share that information, so that
Thank
people
you.
can write it down. Thank you for spending your spring forward Sunday afternoon with me, Happy birthday. I'm so
Oh.
happy that you are here and like, yeah.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here with you on the planet at the same time. How awesome is
Yay.
that?
Yeah, because our little joke is, and I think I came up with it, that we were like puppies that were born in the same litter
We were.
and like
We were
adopted by
separated.
different families.
And we found each other, folks.
Yeah, we finally found it. We were the split up litter and we finally found each other. So I can't wait until the pandemic, like when we've been vaccinated, because I am ready for that running.
It's gonna happen. I mean, it could happen as soon as the end of April.
Yeah, that's right. Because I can get vaccinated in April.
Mm-hmm. I have my first
Yes.
shot on Monday. Tomorrow, yeah. I know. What a blessing.
Yes. Yes. So I want to take this opportunity to say farewell to Diana.
Thank you
So
so
I can,
much. Thank you so much for having
yes.
me, and I cannot wait for the future episodes of Creating in Color. Please support Nicole's work
Yay.
as well. Go over there and give her some love on Venmo or PayPal
Hey.
or on Patreon, all of those things.
All of those things, which I have my links ready to go to show people how to
Awesome.
continue supporting us. So
All
I
right.
will see you soon.
Bye.
Bye. So as promised, I wanted to share with all of you ways that you can continue following and supporting our work. First up is Diana Alvarez, Dr. Xingona. You can find her online at diana-alvarez.com. You can find her on Facebook and Instagram at Burhawana. You can find her on Patreon at www.patreon.com/Diana Alvarez. And to support her current campaign towards releasing her album, Sarah Artista, you can find her here on Indiegogo. And then for myself, I am at NicoleMYoung.com. On Facebook, I am writer Coco Pen Explorer. On Instagram, I am Coco_Pen Explorer. And I am also on Patreon at www.patreon.com/Coco Pen Explorer. I want to thank you all so much for joining us this afternoon and taking this as an opportunity to honor the practice behind the productivity. And I look forward to continuing to bring you Creating in Color with Nicole M. Young.